Welcome back to the Achieve Your Apex podcast. Chad Himes here, continuing to take you on a journey. Now, we are talking about thinking and then acting. And I got a story I got to share with you. It's a personal story. It's my story. I want to share a time that, I didn't necessarily think before I acted. I was a new father. Now, if you know someone who's a new parent, please share this episode with them. If you know someone who's expecting, share this episode with them so they don't make the mistakes I made. Now, here I was as a new father. My daughter was about 6 weeks old at this time. I was working evenings because I was working in the entertainment industry on a production show. And I would get home and I would still be awake and wired from work. So I would usually put on ESPN's rebroadcast of whatever game that happened earlier that day and wait until about 3 a.m. because that's when my daughter woke up for her middle of the night feeding. She was clockwork on 3 a.m. wake up for that feeding, and it was my shift because I was still unwinding from a night at work. Now, one day, she didn't wake up at 3 a.m. I was a little suspicious. I thought I'd give her a few more minutes and see what was going on. But by 3:05, she had not made a noise. So into her room I went. Now, she was laying there in her crib, and to me, she just looked like she wasn't moving. Now, I had made the mistake, or maybe what I thought was the right decision at the time, and I had read what to expect when you're expecting before my daughter was born. Scariest book I've ever read, and I've read everything Stephen King wrote. Okay, I read this book. So when I saw my daughter laying there in the crib, I saw her as non-responsive. So the first thing I did was I went right over to her. I put my hand over her. I didn't feel any air coming out of her. I took her hand and I lifted it up in the air and it dropped like a rock. I lifted it again. I was hoping, because I'm a kid of the 80s, I was hoping for one of those Hulk Hogan moments where his hand stays up and the finger starts to waggle. No, it dropped like a rock again. Okay, she's not responding in any way. I did a leg. That's what it told me to do in the book. So I picked up one of her legs and I dropped it. Same thing, non-responsive. No longer was I thinking. Emotions flooded me. My 6-week-old child was not responsive. It was 3 a.m. I scooped her up, ran, threw her in the car seat, threw her in the car, and backed out of the house. I didn't even bother to wake her mother. As I was leaving, I pulled out of the driveway, made a few turns, got to the first street light that I came to, and I know the answer to the question now. If it's the middle of the night and there's nobody around and there's a red light, will you go through it? Yes. Yes, I did. I had no problem going through that red light. I didn't call an ambulance. I figured I could actually get to the hospital faster than an ambulance could get to me at 3 a.m. when the road was supposed to be empty anyway. So I just rushed her to the hospital. I went through every red light that came up. Yeah, I slowed down. I looked. I made sure no one was there. I wasn't endangering anybody. Got myself to the hospital. Pulled right up to the emergency entrance to the hospital. And I don't even know if I turned the car off. All I know is I grabbed her car seat out of the back of the car and I ran inside to the emergency room, where I was greeted by a nurse who said, "What's going on?" And started asking me questions. And I was just a mile a minute. My God, my daughter won't respond. She's not being responsive. I did the arm thing. I did the leg thing. She's not moving. She's supposed to wake up at 3 o'clock. She hasn't woken up. And another nurse took my daughter in the car seat quickly behind a curtain, calling for the doctor while they were having me start to fill out paperwork. Before I had the paperwork filled out, the doctor came around the corner holding my daughter in his arm. And he said, "Is this your daughter?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Congratulations, you woke her." Gave me back my daughter, laughed at me, and sent me on my way. Now, folks, there were a lot of mistakes made in this situation. The running the red light is not one of those mistakes. And I want you to understand that emotions are going to get the best of all of us at times. And what we have to make sure of is that when emotion comes, if we make an emotional choice, that we are prepared to be in that situation, which usually we're not. Yet the first thing to always remember is you must diversify the inputs that you receive. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, too many of us will read one book and think it's fact. Too many of us, forgive me, will watch just CNN or just Fox and figure that they're correct. We don't take in enough information of opposing positions to be ready when a situation comes in front of us. So make sure you diversify your information sources. I read one book and panicked because of what they told me. We need to make sure that when possible, we have that emotional awareness and emotional control, that we remember emotions take 6 seconds. Stop, calm, breathe. If I had just done that for a second, maybe if I'd put my hand on my daughter's chest, I would have felt her breathing. Maybe if I had just waited another minute, I would have realized I could have heard her heartbeat and that she was fine. Yet I let emotion take over because at that time, being an exhausted person, I had no emotional awareness or control. That's another thing. Don't make decisions exhausted. Rest is one of the most important things you're ever going to get. Get it when you can and make sure that you make it a priority to keep things moving forward in your world. Folks, let my story, my embarrassment, my disaster be one that you learn from. And if you have a new child and they're sleeping through the night, let them finally sleep through the night. You will appreciate that for the rest of your life. Remember, keep climbing.